It's response time. A day late, because I didn't feel like filming it a couple days ago, so wouldn't have had it out by Saturday, so I'm putting it out today. Once again, I am going to be starting with Abby. I really enjoyed your video this week on the secret code of socializing. Now, you know this about me. I am also just completely and utterly terrible when it comes to any kind of socializing. A lot of that comes from my own brand of anxiety. I'm always afraid that I come across as awkward and that people just won't like me in social settings, so I just don't socialize that often. But I just really appreciate how open that you are about your own feelings toward this particular topic. The exact words that I am trying to say in response to this video aren't currently coming, but I just want to let you know that I really enjoyed the video. And I feel like I talk with you a lot about when I like your videos, so I'm not as anxious about not going as much more into detail about that. So I'm gonna wrap this up before the rambling goes on for too much longer. Alicia, you made a few really emotionally vulnerable videos this week, and I absolutely enjoyed all of them. And what I'm going to talk about in this video is one that wasn't as emotionally vulnerable. Specifically, I want to talk about your divination deck movie. I have always found cartomancy to be fascinating. I'm not sure that I fully realized that there is more to cartomancy than just tarot decks. Like, I feel like there was a part of my brain that must have known that at some point, but for whatever reason, I just kind of assumed that tarot decks were just the only sort of card reading that there was out there. And so I appreciate that you showed us this other deck that you have that also can be used toward card reading. And I think the cards are just gorgeous. Also, I know that I mentioned this last week, and maybe it'll just keep being a running theme throughout these response videos toward you, but I really appreciate how much you're able to do with such a simple setup. Like with your meditation video, this video was very simply shot. But everything that went into it was just very impressive, from the music that you chose to the way that you just kind of turned the lights off and had the one single beam of light pointed out at the cards. It was just all very impressive. Caleb, thank you for introducing us to Thomas Blood. This was not a man that I had heard of before your video, and I am really glad that I now know about him. He is the exact kind of character in history that I love to hear about. And the way that you presented this information was very, very well done. Bit of a side tangent to talk about why I enjoyed the way you presented it. There's a channel on YouTube called Watcher, which consists of Stephen Lim, Ryan Bergara, and Shane Madej. I believe all three of them used to work for BuzzFeed. I know Ryan and Shane did, and I believe Stephen did as well. But then they kind of branched off from that and started their own channel. And one of the shows on this channel is Puppet History. And it's a show where Shane puppeteers a puppet called the Professor, and he gives history lessons about various topics. It's a show that I very much enjoy, and your discussion of Thomas Blood reminded me a lot of Puppet History. Graham, I wanted to talk about your video where you took us to the West Edmonton Mall. I'm really glad that you showed us the West Edmonton Mall, because that mall is one of the coolest places that I have ever seen. I know that you mentioned in your video that you think that the Mall of America in Minnesota is slightly bigger than this one. And I can't say for certain if that's true, because I don't know really how big either of these places are, but I lived in Minnesota for about 5 years, and I visited the Mall of America. I'm not going to say a lot, but I did visit it on occasion. And I absolutely love the Mall of America. I think it has a lot of really nice shops, and it does have a theme park right in the middle. However, having visited the Mall of America multiple times, I can say with certainty that the West Edmonton Mall looks a lot cooler. I mean, it literally has a water park in the middle of it with a wave pool. I honestly don't think it can get much cooler than that, so I very much appreciate you and Tamara showing us this mall. James, one of the things that I always appreciate about your videos is when you give commentaries on pieces of media. And while obviously I like about when you talk about things that you enjoy, I also really like when you talk about things that you really don't. And so I absolutely love your commentary on that really weird and kind of awful Flintstones show. I had not heard of this show before you talked about it, and I can kind of understand why. And I just appreciate you bringing this show to light and letting us all know about just how terrible it really is. Also, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the past. I feel like I must have at some point, but just in case I didn't, I should mention it now. You're really, really good at editing. Especially when you talk about these various pieces of media, you're good at finding the clips that you need to convey what it is you're trying to convey. And that's something I really appreciate about you. And I also have to mention that I do love the edit where you hold up the DVD and it's upside down. I think that might be one of my all-time favorite moments from that video. And finally, Tessa. I mean, you talked about musicals, so I'm going to talk about that video where you talked about musicals. I always find it interesting to watch videos from people when they talk about their various favorite things. So, like, one of the videos that I watch on YouTube is Peanut Butter Gamer, and he did a video where he talked about his top favorite video games. And he is a video game channel, so it was interesting to see these video games that he considers his favorites. And I would make the argument that your channel is very much a musical channel, especially this month, and so it's really nice to see what kind of musicals make it to the top of your list. And there are some musicals that I honestly didn't know a lot about. I had heard of Dogfight, but I didn't know anything whatsoever about it, and it was nice to hear you talk about that. And I will always be happy when someone talks about 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. That was the very first show that I saw on Broadway, and I fell in love with it, and I still love it to this day and still consider it my all-time favorite musical, and that's with a lot of really good musicals that I've seen since. The last thing that I want to mention with your video is just how much I appreciate you talking about how good it is to have musicals that are just silly. I also really like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I know it's not a good musical, but I always really enjoy when I watch it. And I do think that it's good to just have things that you watch because they're fun. You don't need a deeper meaning, you don't need serious dramatic moments, it can just be fun. And I'm always happy when other people mention that. Also, not at all about musicals, but I did very briefly want to mention that I grew up really close to Ashland, so I drove by Grandpa's Cheese Barn a lot when I was younger, and so it's really interesting actually being able to see the inside of it, so thank you for that as well. So that is my discussion of all of your videos from this past week. Obviously I didn't talk about all of them because that would take forever, but I did watch all of them, I did enjoy all of them. Once again, y'all are just really good at making videos. And I know that several challenges have been issued. I don't know which, if any of them, I am going to end up doing. I'm in a very strange position here in that I actually almost have every single day for the rest of the month planned with something. That's usually not the case when it comes to this point in the month, so it's a different situation that I find myself in. But we'll see. I'm hoping to at least do some of the challenges before the end of the month. Maybe I'll do some of them after the month is over. We'll see how it goes. But until next time, to my friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see all of you tomorrow.